Hello, my name is Bryce, and this is my channel, Striving Intellect. And today we're going to talk about responsibility and accepting the consequences of our own actions, which seem to be two things that people in the modern era are completely allergic to. But to start it off, I'm going to go on a short tangent. So, for thousands of years, human beings have practiced something called farming. And for all of you lefties out there and Zoomers, farming is where we get most of our food from. But for thousands of years, the farmer practiced farming by plowing the fields and sowing his seed, and those seeds that he sowed would actually be the food, the harvest of his next year. So, for example, if the farmer decided not to sow his seeds and to eat the seeds during a harsh winter, he would starve. And on the other side, if the farmer was partially lucky but also hardworking and took care of the things that he needed to do, his harvest for the next year would be good and he would not starve. I mean, for very, very long time, especially in agrarian or agricultural societies, this was the way of life. You reaped what you sowed, right? So, in modern days, we have kind of gone away from farming, and we're not necessarily a society where everybody has to grow their own food, thank goodness. But that being said, you still can reap what you sow. And let me give you a modern day example of that. So, for example, if you go after your political enemies with the judicial system and you use the courts against them in a very novel way, might I add. I'm not saying uncredible or anything like that, but generally speaking, if you go after your political enemies with the judicial system, I would expect that your political enemies would also go after you in the same way. You reap what you sow. If you sow chaos, you will get chaos back. And obviously, I'm talking about the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the judicial attacks. That's what I would call them. Generally speaking, I think most lawyers would call them novel prosecutions that have not necessarily been done before. But beyond that, when you go after your political enemies in these ways, maybe even in illegal ways, by falsifying information or fraudulently testifying, these are crimes. Again, you reap what you sow. If you sow chaos, expect to get chaos back. So let me actually read this. This is from 2023, and obviously the court system and the judicial systems went after Donald Trump for a very long time, about 5 or so years, maybe longer than that. Actually, I believe longer than that. Let's say 2016. But generally speaking, everybody, no matter what, is allotted a lawyer. You have the right to have a lawyer, right? It's actually the Sixth Amendment. So, as you can see, criminal defendants have a Sixth Amendment right to counsel. That right is guaranteed regardless of the defendant's ability to pay. Of all the rights that an accused person has, the right to be represented by counsel by far the most pervasive, for it affects his ability to assert any other rights he may have, right? They literally give lawyers to murderers. Not even that. Serial killers get lawyers, right? Okay. So, again, this article is WBLA TV 11. Who knows? CBS or something like that. These are the Trump lawyers charged in the Georgia case. So, in these cases, they literally criminally charged and prosecuted Trump's lawyers for representing him, right? And there's a whole swath of these individuals, whether it's Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Sidney Powell, Kenneth Cheesebro, Jenna Ellis, Ray Smith, and Robert Cheeley. So they literally went after and prosecuted Donald Trump's lawyers for representing him, which is, again, might I add, the Sixth Amendment. You have the right to an attorney. So, now let's go to present day. And let's talk about something called Autopen. You know, the Autopen has been a thing that's in the news lately because apparently our presidents have been using an Autopen to sign a large amount of documents. Some of these documents are legally allowed to be signed by Autopen. Some of them may not be. There's obviously a large amount of legal opinions about this. I am no lawyer, by the way. I'm just interested in this topic. But the Autopen allegedly, and this is why it's in the news, was used for all of Biden's pardons. So all of Joe Biden's pardons that he gave to a large amount of individuals who used the judicial system against Donald Trump and arrested his lawyers for representing him, by the way. So these pardons were for a large amount of individuals who weaponized the judicial system, first off, and individuals like Dr. Fauci, who practiced what most people would call gain-of-function research and then perjured himself before Congress by lying to them. Hunter Biden, there's a plethora of individuals that were pardoned. Actually, it was a historical amount, pardoning people for everything 10 years back, including his children and his family. And again, the argument was that the Trump administration would go after them with political warfare or lawfare. I wonder why they would think that when they spent the last 10 years going after Donald Trump with novel cases in political warfare with the weaponized judicial system. I wonder why. Again, you reap what you sow. If you sow chaos, expect to get chaos back, right? So, let's see. Here's actually a video of said Autopen. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. They should ban these, by the way. They should completely ban this. This is absurd that legal documents can be signed by anybody that presses the button, right? So I think the issue with these pardons is we don't necessarily know whether or not Donald Trump can actually void them because of the Autopens. It's a novel use of the law, obviously. It's never been done before. But that being said, it shouldn't necessarily be something that a president uses at all. Like, they should sign their documents by themselves. Their legal documents, they should sign them by themselves. The problem is, anybody can press that button and have the president's signature on anything. So it's hard to know whether or not it was Joe Biden who actually pardoned these individuals. Again, I'm not saying whether or not that means that they can be voided or not. I'm not a lawyer, but it does seem like the judicial system is going to have to go over this. And obviously, the Trump administration is claiming that the pardons are void because they were used by an Autopen. And again, like, this shouldn't even be a problem. If they didn't use an Autopen at all, this would not be a problem whatsoever. But the idea that individuals who weaponized the judicial system in novel ways and in some cases even falsifies information, it makes sense that an individual who sees himself as being prosecuted wrongly for political reasons would want the individuals who did those things to face justice from the judicial system. And obviously, if somebody in these administrations prior to President Trump did use illegal means or fraudulent means or perjure themselves in order to actually go after their political enemies, that would be them weaponizing the judicial system to arrest their political enemies, like a banana republic. I know that's a tired comparison, but that is what they do in banana republics. So let's just go on to the Sixth Amendment one more time. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the rights to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of a state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusations, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have assistance of counsel for his defense. Again, they arrested his lawyers for representing him. They prosecuted and arrested his lawyers. I'm not saying that individuals did necessarily commit crimes, but if they did, and they were using the judicial system to arrest their political enemies so they can't get elected, then those individuals committed crimes, and they should go to jail. Again, you reap what you sow. If you sow chaos, expect to get chaos back. Well, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.